Hello and welcome. It's Thursday, and I'm so happy to be here with you to talk through the MBA applications. If you were able to join me earlier this week, I was in the GMAT Club's MBA fair, where I talked about essentially how to deal with setbacks in your application, whether you were an applicant who has already received rejections or someone who is even considering to apply this time around. And today we are going to continue the discussion in terms of school selection. I know a lot of you are going through the application submission for round 2 or are considering this year versus next year. And it's important to also have your sights set on particular schools, which helps you determine what are the test scores you have to have in order to be successful in this program, what you have to make sure that you communicate to make sure that there is a fit between you and your experiences, as well as what the school is looking for. So as usual, I have put together a presentation. Today's topic is going to be Columbia Business School and NYU Stern. So we're doing the comparisons of the top New York City schools. As we go through this presentation, I invite you to write your questions wherever you're joining us from, whether that is in any of the platforms. I will keep monitoring the screen. I am by myself today, so you may see me look to my right and just to kind of monitor any questions that come about. Would definitely love to hear what questions you have as we go through this presentation and ways that I can help you navigate the school selection or any other component that you are considering. Now, if you would like to essentially have your profile evaluated and talk with us essentially about how C Admissions can support you, I invite you to book a free consultation where we talk about your background and your stories. There is a consultation link on the screen, or you can scan the QR code that you see as well on your particular screen. Or go to our website, cadmissions.com, and book your consultation that way. A little bit about myself as we go through, for those of you who are new, we've had an increase in presence of individuals who are new to our community. So just a quick introduction. C Admissions, which is a company I have founded, is a boutique MBA admission coaching program that focuses on working with applicants one-on-one to help them present essentially a curated presentation of their experiences that are in alignment with their authentic selves, while also taking into account what business schools are looking for. We do spend quite a lot of time getting to know the applicants we work with and helping them look at their experiences, sometimes through a new lens, and be able to communicate those in a way that makes sense for business school applications. We go through beginning to end of the process, so it's very much a hand-holding journey for applicants. I am the founder, and when I started the business, I realized that there's a lot of coaches out there who are not taking the time to get to know the applicants and help them navigate this very important process in terms of their journey, in terms of what, setting their career trajectory and having the best opportunities possible for them. And that's why we founded SIA, or I founded SIA, and we remain very much a company who focuses primarily on giving that one-on-one support to applicants. So if you're interested, definitely reach out to talk about how we can support you. Now, let's dive into what today's topic. So we're going to go through program strengths, key differences between NYU and CBS, some admission insights in terms of what the admission teams are looking for, some high-level components on how to craft a strong application, and then, of course, choosing the right program. I do have Q&A at the end, but as usual, please write your questions in the comments, so this way I can take a look and essentially, or rather answer the questions as we go along. We have received registration, so we have some questions that have come through that. I do have a tendency to talk a lot, so we'll see how many we can answer in the 30-minute session we have. So let's start with Columbia. Quick overview. The class is relatively large in terms of class of 2026, where the August term is 972 and the January term is 238. Columbia, among the US schools, does have a January term for applicants who do not need the internship, the summer internship. Therefore, they start in January and finish with those that started the August beforehand. So they finished with the full-time program, which means they're taking classes over the summer as well. The acceptance rate at Columbia is about 22% of applicants that apply are admitted. Columbia is part of the M7, so the Mega Elite 7 business schools, and it's highly coveted among that category, and obviously among top 20 business schools. And in terms of curriculum structure, it has a very solid core requirement, and has in terms of the teaching methodology, it mixes case studies, lectures, team project, and experiential learning. It is quite a mix, so it depends on who is your professor, and it depends quite a bit on sort of the classes that you're enrolled in. In terms of the culture at Columbia, it has a high level of diverse applicant pool and individuals who are very determined, very high achiever kind of personality with a global outlook. These are individuals who are looking at working at organizations that are that have presence, not just nationally but also internationally. In terms of opportunities, because of its location, New York City, it's a finance hub, so it makes sense that both NYU, and we'll talk about that too, but both NYU and Columbia have strong finance roots. So if that's the place where you're looking to go in terms of your career or sector you're looking to go, that would be a really good fit. Obviously, consulting too. I mean, when we think about it, consulting and finance does take quite a large role of applicants that actually go into those two sectors post MBA, so there's no surprise here. And real estate, kind of like a non-traditional pathways. Those who are looking to work in the real estate sector have a really strong network within Columbia Business School. So this may be a really good place for you if that's something that you are considering. So in terms of the strengths and where students go in the kind of the areas that Columbia Business School is known for, I mentioned finance, media and entertainment too is quite popular there, and real estate as well. In terms of NYU, obviously a much smaller class. In comparison to Columbia. So 352 is their class size. It is only August term, so it's not divided into two. The acceptance rate is essentially about 25% of applicants who apply are admitted into the program. The curriculum, it's much more flexible than Columbia, and it does have a mix of case studies and a huge significance on, it places a huge significance or a huge emphasis rather on hands-on practical experiences, and they do have quite a lot of relationships with employers that allow you to get those hands-on experiences that you need. So if you are looking to change sectors and you need a bit of support in terms of making sure you have the right exposures, then NYU, with its flexibility as well as with the hands-on emphasis, can be a really great fit for you. In terms of culture, it is much more collaborative, and it does have a global outlook. I mean, NYU is a very global school. As my alma mater, I can attest to that. Obviously, I went in there for my undergraduate, but the point is still across the schools, it's very diverse. And they do have this beyond yourself kind of mindset to bring about change with a social impact emphasis. Post MBA opportunities, like I mentioned, or like Columbia, finance is strong, consulting is also strong. Those who are interested in the retail space, even in luxury, NYU is really the best place to be. And obviously those who are interested in the tech space as well, NYU has the tech MBA in addition to the full-time MBA. And as a full-time MBA student, you have access to the resources across the different programs as well as across the different schools too. Okay, my slides are not working, so just give me 1 second. Okay. So, the strengths are finance, consulting, technology, luxury and retail, and entrepreneurship, particularly with that emphasis on technology. The emphasis here, sorry, the cover of the slide has the wrong information from last week. So the curriculum at CBS is very structured, whereas it's very flexible, hands-on at NYU Stern. In terms of learning, Columbia has a much more traditional process of, or traditional core structure requirement of the courses, even much more emphasis on cases and lecture style, whereas NYU has a more flexible curriculum that allows you to really customize your experience there. It does have a much more team-focused, like a working style with a lot of hands-on opportunities. Obviously, like I said, those are great for individuals who are working in consulting, who are looking to work in tech, in finance, in technology, a lot of the areas that have that team-based environment, where more and more is going that way. These schools are quite strong across the board. In terms of what the admission team is looking for Columbia, and I would say this is true across the board, including NYU, they're looking for well-rounded candidates that can have success, both academically and professionally. So you want to showcase success in your experiences that you've had professionally, so growth, that you've had impact, but also in your academic experiences too. Columbia University is an Ivy League, so academics are quite important there. So this means that you want to have strong emphasis on your academic performance. And if you perform poorly in undergraduate, which is normal, or it happens rather, you do want to make sure that you have a higher than average GMAT or GRE score so that you can counter the academic performance that you've had in college. If it's low, you definitely want to also write about it in your application. But they do want to see that you are going to be able to succeed in this very rigorous community, learning style rather. In terms of the culture fit, Columbia values diversity, entrepreneurial spirit, and a global perspective. Therefore, your application, your materials that you're presenting must communicate that to them in the material that you're submitting. So they have 3 essays that they ask you to write about, and you are going to weave these characteristics of your own experiences to make sure that you are capturing how your experiences, your mindset, your perspectives are matching the culture of Columbia. In terms of the fact that Columbia is in New York City, Columbia Business School is in New York City, there's a lot of distractions there. They're looking for also people who have a very clear goal, who have very clear goals and know what their purpose in terms of what they want to do. They want to know that you have not just clarity of what you want to do, but you know the pathway to get there and how you're going to leverage Columbia Business School and New York City location in order to help you get to where you want to go. So this is true. The New York City location is true for both Columbia and NYU, and that is something they will ask you. Not necessarily in your essays, but they will ask you in the interview. So you definitely want to make sure that you understand the value that New York City has in your career journey and the opportunities that it presents itself to you. NYU is notorious for the IQ and EQ emphasis they place on those applicants that are admitted. IQ, it's obviously intellectual strengths. They want to see that through your applications, through your academic performance, similar to CBS. So they do need to know that you're going to be a strong candidate, that you're going to find success in the sort of like the intellectually inspiring space that NYU is. But they also want to know that you have also emotional intelligence. The school is very diverse in terms of the student body, in terms of the greater New York University, and they are looking for individuals who have both the intellectual strength as well as the emotional intelligence. This will need to be captured throughout your applications or the materials that you are presenting. So in the Pick 6, in the Change It essays, but also your letters of recommendation will be asked the IQ and EQ question in terms of how do you embody these strengths. And your recommenders that you choose will have to be able to answer this question in order for you to be successfully invited to interview. And then obviously, once you pass the screening process, offer of admission. They are very much, because there is quite a lot of flexibility and in terms of curriculum, and it's also quite a lot of quite a diverse, diverse interests. They are looking for students who have who are very collaborative and who have a lot of value add to bring to the NYU community. So your emphasis is really going to be, what are you bringing to the table? What experiences have you had? And how those experiences are going to, you need to be able to communicate that to them, how your experiences are going to add value to the NYU Stern community. And this is really important, because sometimes I see applicants go down the questions of, well, I'm going to share all the experiences that I have, and I'll let you pick which ones make sense. But in reality, that is a very incorrect way to approach this. You do need to make the assessment of your strengths and be able to communicate those strengths to the admission team in your written materials. And then also they're looking for individuals who have a mind for social impact, commitment to positively impacting the communities that they're going to be a part of, whether that community is your professional sphere or your volunteer sort of extracurricular activities. They do want to see that you have this mindset, you have this sort of social impact, quote unquote, bone that you can bring quite a bit of value to the community and the experiences that you share with your peers. If you have questions, we're getting closer to the end of the presentation. If you have questions, definitely now is the right time to put them in the chat and in whichever platform you are joining us from, so that I can answer them here live. Also, if you want to discuss your application, there is a QR code on the screen that you can scan and schedule a consultation to discuss how we can support your applications. So let's continue. How to choose the right programs. So when you choose your business school list, target list, you are going to look at career alignments, culture fit, and the long-term network. These are macro level ideas around why you're essentially investing this amount of time, this amount of money in your MBA journey. And you want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of where you're going and understand what the school can offer you in terms of getting to where you want to go. You understand that this is a culture match, which means that you have similar personality, interest, value system as the schools that you are targeting, and the long-term network, that you're not just thinking about your peer group immediately, but rather how can you leverage this community of individuals for years to come. You will be forever associated with the school that you are that you end up joining. So it's really important that you think about not just immediately, but also long-term and how the school can support you. So if we look at your, career goals, how does CBS and NYU Stern align with your aspirations? So if you're looking to work in finance, you ideally want to work in New York City. Both schools are excellent, and I would probably target both schools in terms of your application. If you are really looking for global network, in terms of global roles that you're going to hold, or roles that have a global outlook, then CBS is probably a better option. If you want the tech exposure, fintech, technology, or entrepreneurship, Stern may be a better option for that. In terms of culture fit, if you are more independent and driven and are really determined, CBS may be a better option for you. But I would say that also applies to NYU Stern. But the difference is at NYU, it's that the school is a lot more collaborative. The culture there is much more collaborative and diverse, and the emphasis is a lot on diversity. So if that's something that really resonates with you in terms of the kinds of people you want to be around, then NYU may be a better option. Both Columbia and NYU have quite a global network, but Columbia does have quite a lot of diversity in terms of careers that their alumni are in, which will allow you a little bit more flexibility in terms of being able to leverage that network as you make pivots in your career, if you are making pivots in your career. NYU Stern obviously has a very strong network in New York City, as does Columbia, and has a very engaged alumni body. But if you're looking for the global element, it's probably not as strong as Columbia Business School. So you're making those decisions, knowing first and foremost, where do you see your life going? Do you plan on staying in the US? Or do you plan on having a more global career? And then you're making your decisions based on that. In terms of crafting a standout application, obviously, each school has its own unique applications style, questions, what matters to them. And you want to really be able to tailor your strengths into the questions that they're asking of you. Columbia has much more of the sort of traditional essay styles where you're writing responses to 3 questions, whereas NYU has a traditional essay, but then also has the Pick 6, which is 6 images of who you are. So you're introducing yourself with 6 images, which is a much more creative side that is very notorious it's a very character strength of NYU Stern. But this does not mean that just because you are taking into account the fact that they're different, one is an essay and one is essay focus and the other one has like these picture creative side. It doesn't mean that your character needs to be set aside. You must capture your character on each one, but in a different way in terms of what they're asking you to do. Make sure that you're capturing your leadership focus, your commitment to the communities that you're a part of, the experiences that you have had and how those experiences will add value. I mentioned earlier, it's really important that you don't let them assume what your value is. Rather, you must actually tell them what your value is so that they can, use those details, not have to analyze your essay, but rather be able to take the information that you've shared with them, that is cohesively and presented across different parts of the application for them to make a decision. Of course, your letters of recommendation play a huge role in the application process, and you want to choose recommenders who can support each application and guide them in terms of what you're trying to communicate to each of the schools to make sure that they can support you. If they're willing to write letters of recommendation, they want to see you succeed, and therefore give them the content that they need in order for them to be able to support you. Okay, so I think that is the end of the presentation. Again, if you want to have a conversation and want to discuss how we can support you, definitely reach out for a consultation call. If you are in this community and want to continue to learn about how we can support, how our content is continuously, we're always adding new content to our website and want to be notified about those those additions, definitely subscribe to our channels, and that is across LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Okay, we have about 5 minutes left. I'm going to stop sharing screens and answer questions. Let's see, do we have any questions that have come in live? No. Okay, so let's go to the questions that have come in through the registration. All right. And by the way, next week we are going to be hosting Berkeley Haas and Yale SOM comparison. So if you are interested in, or if you're considering those two schools, definitely join us next week, Thursday, at our usual time, 10 a.m. Eastern. Okay. The question that we received, so does class size matter? And making sure that I get accepted to NYU Stern. Class doesn't necessarily matter unless, each of the schools, Columbia has obviously a very large class size, so sometimes that can feel intimidating. And even so, NYU, like if you think about 350 plus class size, it's quite large also. But what the schools actually do a really good job is breaking down the classes into sort of clusters and then learning teams. So you still get a very intimate experience while you're there, build friendships, build a network. So the class size in terms of acceptance rates is not necessarily the difference maker. It's really about the culture fit, you being able to communicate what the school is looking for as well in your application. So apart from the website and speaking to current students, how do I put out how do I point out specifics in the application that gives you an insider's edge? Well, that is the reflection piece. So you can get a lot of intel from the website, although I think Columbia does a better job at presenting themselves online than NYU does. I oftentimes feel that they're not, they offer much more than what their website presents in terms of demonstrates. So the conversations are obviously really important. I would say that you want to have conversations with individuals who are in your circles. And what I mean by that, not your friends, but rather individuals who are in the places you want to be. So if you want to be in tech, if you want to be in luxury and retail, if you want to be in media and entertainment, like what is the club that you want to be a part of? What is the community you want to be a part of? And then have conversations with them. They will give you insights from their own personal experiences. And it's your job to present an insider's edge, to really be able to analyze the information that you've gathered and present that in a way that ties together with your application. That's really the only way you can do this. You have to have enough conversations to get quite a bit of intel, right, on what's happening on the ground, and then take that information and be reflective in terms of how does this apply to you in terms of your experiences, knowing fully well that aside from maybe the classes, but definitely the professors, all the other experiences are unique to the time that you are on campus. Meaning, if a student is working on a project, that specific project may not be available the time that you are actually on campus, because that problem has been solved by the students that have been part of that project, right? But you can be sure that you will have similar projects that you'll be working on, and the student experiences that they currently have are just indicative of the sample of experiences that you will have on campus. So recognizing that that's the case, you have to present your story from that lens. So the reason why we at C Admissions put our applicants that we work with through all of the conversations that they need to have and making sure that they're asking the right questions is because what we want them to gain is a crystal clear image of what the experience, what the life of an MBA student at Columbia, for example, or at NYU, or any other school will look like. Because the more you have a clear image of what your experience is going to look like, the better you're going to be at capturing how that particular school will support you and the value that you bring to the table, knowing fully well what's there and where you can add value. So this means quite a lot of conversations. Is not typically just one or two. It's typically about 5 or more conversations, and recognizing, of course, that you're going to be applying to 5 to 6 schools in total. So this adds up in terms of the amount of conversations that you need to have, and being really specific as to how you're going to answer those questions. So there's a question that came in the chat, and it says, I'm not going to put it on the screen so that it's not saved as on the replay, but the question reads, can a paralegal get into these schools? Yes, absolutely. This also depends on what you can bring to the table, what experiences have you had as a paralegal, and where you're looking to go. How can you leverage your experiences to move to the next level in your career? So definitely, I encourage you to reach out, have a conversation. Let's talk about your experiences and plan out how you can present your experiences to the schools. But absolutely, I've worked with clients who had who were essentially physical therapists. When you think about, like, they're not necessarily like business people. Their experiences were not business related whatsoever. So being able to capture the value add that person is going to bring to the table, it's obviously it's a challenge, but it's definitely one that we were able to successfully get them through. So I see one more question here, and then we're going to end, given that our time is up. But the question reads, okay, so the question is essentially, I know that this is about Columbia versus NYU, but isn't Columbia similar to Booth? I'm not sure what this question is exactly asking. Similar in what way? I mean, Booth is, we had actually two sessions ago on Booth, and on Booth versus Kellogg and Booth versus Wharton. And there's in finance, I see. Yes, finance. So I mentioned earlier, finance is definitely a strong suit of Columbia. Obviously, the opportunities at Columbia are going to be much more New York centric, versus Booth is going to be much more Chicago and West Coast centric. But NYU is too very much strong in finance as well. So both of those will definitely be strong on that regard. Booth is more analytical in nature, more quantitatively heavy than CBS. So there's a little bit of a nuance difference in that, but definitely connection-wise, opportunities-wise, training-wise, both of the schools, NYU and Columbia, as well as Booth, are very strong in finance. All right, so if you are joining next week, we will be talking about Yale SOM and Berkeley Haas. So if those are the schools that you're looking to apply to, I encourage you to register, for that. And if you want your questions answered or integrated into the presentation, when you register, please ask the questions that you would like to know, so that even if you can't join us online, you can watch the replay and get insights into your questions that way. Thank you again, and I will see you next week, Thursday.